In the small coastal town of Windridge, Maine, where the ocean waves whispered secrets to the cliffs, Nathan Parker sat quietly in the back seat of his family's old station wagon. The car rumbled along the winding road, the sea breeze fluttering through the open windows, carrying with it the faint scent of salt and seaweed. Nathan's eyes were fixed on the scenery outside, endless stretches of rocky shorelines, quaint cottages with peeling paint, and the occasional lighthouse standing tall against the horizon. But his mind was elsewhere, filled with thoughts of the strange, old house they were headed to. "Nate, you okay back there?" Emily asked, turning around from the passenger seat. His older sister's voice was always gentle, full of the kindness that made Nathan feel a little less nervous about everything. Nathan nodded, clutching the worn book he always carried with him. He loved stories, adventures of knights, fairies, and distant lands, but reading them had always been a challenge, the words often jumbled together, making it hard for him to enjoy the tales as much as he wanted to. Today was different. They were on their way to Aunt Eleanor's house, his great-aunt who had recently passed away. Aunt Eleanor had always been a mysterious figure in Nathan's life, a woman with wild silver hair and twinkling eyes who would visit occasionally, bringing with her strange trinkets and stories that seemed almost magical. Nathan had always been fascinated by her, even though he never quite understood the full extent of her eccentricity. The car finally pulled up to the old house, a grand yet weathered Victorian with a wraparound porch and a turret that looked out over the ocean. The house had stood there for over a century, its once bright paint now faded to a pale gray, its windows dark and shadowed. Nathan felt a shiver run down his spine as he stared at the house, which seemed to watch him back with its empty windows. "All right, here we are," his father said, his voice breaking the silence. "Let's see what Aunt Eleanor left behind." The family stepped out of the car, their footsteps crunching on the gravel driveway. Nathan stayed close to Emily as they approached the front door. His father fumbled with the old keys, and after a few tries, the door creaked open, revealing the dimly lit interior. Inside, the house smelled of dust and old wood, with the faintest hint of lavender, the scent Aunt Eleanor had always worn. The furniture was draped in white sheets, giving the impression that the house was filled with ghosts. Nathan's mother sighed as she surveyed the cluttered living room, filled with trinkets, old books, and curious artifacts. "Let's start with the attic," his father suggested. "That's where Eleanor kept most of her things." Nathan followed his parents and sister up the narrow staircase, his heart pounding in his chest. The stairs creaked under their weight, and with each step, the air grew heavier with the scent of age and memories. When they reached the attic, his father pushed open the door, revealing a room filled with dusty boxes, old furniture, and stacks of yellowing papers. "Let's see what we have here," his mother said, pulling back the cover on a large trunk. Emily joined her, and together they began sorting through the items, uncovering old photographs, letters, and various keepsakes. Nathan, however, was drawn to the far corner of the attic, where a large, ornate painting hung on the wall. The painting depicted a grand library filled with towering bookshelves and glowing with a warm, golden light. The longer Nathan stared at the painting, the more he felt a strange pull toward it, as if it were calling to him. With a hesitant glance back at his family, Nathan approached the painting. It was massive, nearly as tall as he was, and the frame was intricately carved with symbols he didn't recognize. As he reached out to touch it, his fingers brushed against something on the back of the frame, a small hidden latch. Curiosity piqued, Nathan carefully unlatched it, and with a soft click, the painting swung open like a door. Behind it was a narrow, dimly lit passageway leading deeper into the house. Nathan's breath caught in his throat. Could this be what Aunt Eleanor wanted him to find? His heart raced as he stepped into the passage, the wooden floorboards creaking beneath his feet. The walls were lined with more paintings, each one more curious than the last, and at the end of the hallway stood a large, heavy door. On the door was a brass plate that read, "The Library of Stories." Nathan's hand trembled as he reached for the doorknob. He turned it slowly, the door creaking open to reveal a room unlike any he had ever seen. The library was vast, with towering shelves that stretched up to the ceiling, filled with ancient books of all shapes and sizes. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and leather, and the only light came from a grand chandelier that cast a warm, golden glow over everything. Nathan stepped inside, feeling a sense of awe and wonder. This was Aunt Eleanor's secret library, her most prized possession. But why had she left it to him? As he walked further into the room, he noticed a small desk in the corner, upon which sat a neatly folded letter with his name on it. With trembling hands, Nathan opened the letter. The handwriting was elegant, the words carefully chosen. "Dear Nathan, if you are reading this, it means you have found the library. This place is special, filled with stories that need to be kept alive. But they are in danger, Nathan, and only you can save them. Remember, the power of a story lies in the one who reads it. Believe in yourself, and you will unlock the magic within these walls. With all my love, Aunt Eleanor." Nathan's heart swelled with emotion. Aunt Eleanor had always believed in him, even when he struggled. Now, it was his turn to prove that he could be the hero of this story. He looked around the library, feeling a new sense of purpose. The adventure was just beginning. Nathan stood in the center of the grand library, clutching Aunt Eleanor's letter in his hand. The room was vast and silent, the kind of silence that felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The air was thick with the scent of old paper, leather, and a hint of something sweet and musty that Nathan couldn't quite place. The books on the towering shelves seemed to watch him, their spines gleaming faintly in the golden light of the chandelier above. Taking a deep breath, Nathan began to explore the library, his footsteps echoing softly on the wooden floor. The shelves were filled with books of all sizes, some small enough to fit in his pocket, others so large they could barely be lifted. He ran his fingers over the spines, reading the titles: The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Treasure Island, and so many others. Each title stirred a memory of a story he had heard but never read. Tales of distant lands, brave heroes, and magical creatures. As he wandered, Nathan noticed something strange. The further he walked into the library, the dimmer the light became, and the books began to look different. Their once vibrant covers appeared faded, and some of the titles were barely legible. A chill ran down Nathan's spine as he reached out to touch one of the books. The moment his fingers brushed the spine, the book trembled and fell from the shelf, landing on the floor with a soft thud. Nathan knelt to pick up the book, but as he did, something incredible happened. The book began to glow, a soft blue light emanating from its pages. Startled, Nathan dropped it, and as the book hit the floor again, it burst open, the pages fluttering wildly. From the pages emerged a small figure, no taller than Nathan's knee, a tiny knight in shining armor, wielding a sword as bright as the sun. Who are you?" Nathan stammered, his eyes wide with shock. The knight sheathed his sword and looked up at Nathan, his tiny face full of determination. "I am Sir Peter of the Kingdom of Avalon," he declared, in a surprisingly strong voice for someone so small. "And I need your help, young squire." Nathan blinked in astonishment. "My help? But how?" Before Sir Peter could answer, more books began to tremble and fall from the shelves, each one opening to release a character into the library. A mischievous fairy with glittering wings, a talking cat with a wide grin, and a tall, regal queen all appeared, their faces filled with worry. The fairy, her wings shimmering in the dim light, fluttered over to Nathan. "You've awakened us, Nathan," she said, her voice soft and musical. "But our stories are in danger. They are beginning to fade, and soon we will disappear if they are not read aloud." Nathan's heart pounded in his chest. Disappear? But why? The queen, who towered over the others, stepped forward, her expression solemn. "This library holds the stories of countless worlds," she explained, "but without a reader to bring the words to life, the magic within them begins to fade. We are the characters from those stories, and without your help, we will be lost forever." Nathan felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had always loved stories, but reading them had never been easy for him. The words often seemed to dance on the page, jumbling together in ways that made them difficult to understand. The thought of reading these stories aloud, knowing that the fate of the characters depended on it, was overwhelming. "I don't know if I can do it," Nathan admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Sir Peter stepped closer, his tiny hand resting on Nathan's shoe. "You have already shown great courage by finding this library," he said. "The magic of these stories is in your hands now. We believe in you, Nathan." Nathan looked around at the characters, each one unique, each one a piece of a story he had never fully experienced. They all looked at him with hope in their eyes, and despite his fear, Nathan felt a spark of determination ignite within him. Just then, a soft voice called out from the entrance to the library. "Nathan, are you in here?" Nathan turned to see Emily standing in the doorway, her eyes wide with wonder as she took in the sight of the magical room and the characters that surrounded her brother. "What is all this?" she asked, stepping into the library. I don't really know," Nathan replied, still trying to process everything himself. "But these characters need our help. Their stories are fading, and the only way to save them is to read the books aloud." Emily's expression softened as she approached her brother. "You can do this, Nate," she said, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "I know reading is hard for you, but I'll be here with you every step of the way. We'll do it together." Nathan felt a wave of relief wash over him at his sister's words. With Emily by his side, the task ahead didn't seem quite so daunting. He nodded, a small smile forming on his lips. "Okay," he said, his voice gaining a bit more confidence. "Let's save these stories." With Emily's encouragement, Nathan picked up the first book, the one that had released Sir Peter. The pages were old and delicate, the words written in an elegant script. Nathan took a deep breath, opened the book to the first page, and began to read. As he spoke the words aloud, something magical began to happen. The faded letters on the page began to glow, and the room filled with a soft, golden light. The characters watched in awe as the story came to life around them. Sir Peter's kingdom of Avalon appeared in vivid detail, with lush green hills and towering castles. Nathan stumbled over a few words, his voice trembling, but Emily was there to help him. She gently guided him through the difficult parts, her voice steady and calm. Together, they read the story, their voices weaving the magic that kept the characters alive. By the time they finished the first story, Nathan felt a sense of accomplishment he had never experienced before. The characters cheered, their world saved from the brink of disappearance. Sir Peter bowed deeply to Nathan and Emily, his eyes shining with gratitude. "You have done a great thing today, young squire," Sir Peter said, "but there are many more stories that need your help." Nathan looked around the library, his fear slowly giving way to determination. There were so many stories waiting to be read, so many characters that needed saving, and with Emily by his side, he knew they could do it. "We'll read them all," Nathan promised, looking up at the towering shelves filled with books. "We'll save every single one." And so, with newfound courage and a sense of purpose, Nathan and Emily began their journey through the library, bringing the magic of stories to life, one book at a time. Nathan's voice echoed softly through the grand library as he read the words from an ancient, weathered book, the characters from the story, Sir Peter, the brave knight, and Lily, the clever fairy, stood beside him, their eyes filled with anticipation as their world came to life around them. The green hills of Avalon, the shimmering rivers, and the towering castles all materialized in the library, wrapping Nathan and Emily in a magical landscape that felt both real and dreamlike. But despite the beauty around him, Nathan struggled. The words were difficult, some of them long and unfamiliar, and his tongue tripped over them as he read. He could feel the pressure building, knowing that the fate of these characters depended on him. Each time he stumbled, the glowing light around the pages flickered, causing the images to waver. Emily, sitting close to Nathan, noticed his frustration and gently placed her hand on his. "You're doing great, Nate," she said softly. "Just take your time. We'll get through this together." Nathan nodded, grateful for her support. He took a deep breath and continued reading, slowly but steadily. The light from the book grew stronger again, and the world of Avalon became more vivid. Sir Peter stood proudly on a hill, his sword gleaming in the sunlight, while Lily flitted about, her wings sparkling like tiny rainbows. But then, as Nathan turned the page, the room suddenly grew colder. The once warm and golden light dimmed, and a shadow seemed to creep into the library. The characters around him tensed, their expressions turning from joy to concern. "What's happening?" Nathan asked, his voice trembling. Lily, hovering near Nathan's shoulder, glanced around nervously. "The curse," she whispered. "It's stronger than we thought." Nathan looked at her, confusion and fear clouding his mind. "Curse? What curse?" Sir Peter stepped forward, his expression grave. "This library was not always a place of peace and magic," he explained. "Long ago, a curse was placed upon it by a dark sorcerer, angry that his stories were forgotten. The curse demands that every story in this library be read by the next morning, or the characters within them will fade away forever, lost to time." Nathan's heart sank. There were hundreds of books in this library. How could he possibly read them all before morning? He looked at the shelves, towering high above him, filled with books as far as the eye could see. It seemed an impossible task. "But there's no way I can read all of these by then," Nathan said, panic creeping into his voice. "I'm not even good at reading. I'll never make it in time." Emily squeezed his hand, her eyes filled with determination. "We can do it, Nate. We'll take it one book at a time, and I'll help you with the hard parts. We won't give up." Nathan swallowed hard, trying to push down his fear. He knew Emily was right. They had to try. The lives of Sir Peter, Lily, and countless other characters depended on them. He picked up the next book, a thick volume with a worn leather cover, and opened it to the first page. The words danced before his eyes, but he forced himself to focus, to read each word carefully. As he read, the library transformed again. This time, they found themselves in a dense forest, the air filled with the scent of pine and the sound of rustling leaves. A group of woodland creatures appeared, watching Nathan with wide, hopeful eyes. But the shadows lingered at the edges of the scene, threatening to engulf the light if he faltered. Nathan's voice shook as he continued reading, but he pushed on, each word bringing more of the story to life. Emily helped him when the words became too difficult, her voice steady and calm. Together, they wove the magic of the story, keeping the darkness at bay. Hours passed, and the weight of the task began to press down on Nathan. His eyes burned with fatigue, his voice growing hoarse. They had made progress. Several stories had been saved, and the characters now roamed freely in the library, their worlds vibrant and alive. But there were still so many books left, and the night was slipping away. As the clock in the hallway struck midnight, Nathan felt a deep weariness settle into his bones. He looked at the remaining shelves, still filled with unread books, and despair threatened to overwhelm him. Lily fluttered to his side, her tiny hand resting on his shoulder. "You've done so well, Nathan," she said, her voice gentle. "But time is running out. We need to find a way to unlock the true power of the library." "The true power?" Emily echoed, her brow furrowing. "What do you mean?" Sir Peter nodded, his expression thoughtful. "This library was created with powerful magic, magic that can be harnessed by those who truly believe in the stories within. But to unlock that power, Nathan must connect with the stories in a deeper way, not just reading them, but feeling them, living them." Nathan looked at the books around him, the characters waiting anxiously for their stories to be told. He knew he cared about them, that he wanted to save them, but how could he do more than just read? Emily seemed to sense his thoughts. She took his hand, looking into his eyes with unwavering support. "Nate, think about the stories you've read so far. Think about the characters, their hopes, their fears, their dreams. You've always loved stories, even if reading them was hard. Now's the time to show how much they mean to you." Nathan nodded, feeling a warmth spread through him at her words. He closed his eyes and let his mind drift back to the stories they had read, the bravery of Sir Peter, the cleverness of Lily, the loyalty of the woodland creatures. He thought about the worlds they had created together, the magic that had sprung from the pages. When he opened his eyes, something had changed. The library seemed brighter, the shadows receding as a new light filled the room. Nathan felt a surge of energy, a connection to the stories he had never felt before. He picked up the next book, a thin volume with delicate pages, and began to read, but this time the words flowed more easily, the magic within them stronger. As Nathan read, the characters' worlds grew more vibrant, more real. The curse's grip weakened, the darkness lifting as the power of the stories filled the room. Emily smiled, seeing the change in her brother, and joined him in reading, their voices blending together in perfect harmony. They read through the night, book after book, story after story, the library glowing with the light of 1,000 worlds. And as the first light of dawn broke through the windows, Nathan read the final words of the last book. The library shone with a golden brilliance, the characters cheering as the curse was finally broken. Nathan collapsed into a chair, exhausted but triumphant. The characters gathered around him, their faces full of gratitude and joy. Sir Peter knelt before him, his sword raised in salute. "You have saved us all, Nathan," the knight said, his voice filled with reverence. "You are not just a reader, you are a true hero." Nathan smiled, his heart swelling with pride. He had done it. He had saved the stories, not just by reading them, but by believing in them. And in doing so, he had unlocked the true magic of the library. Emily hugged him tightly, her eyes shining with pride. "I knew you could do it," she whispered. Nathan looked around at the characters, the library, the world they had brought to life together. He knew that this was just the beginning of his adventure, and with Emily by his side, there was nothing they couldn't achieve. Nathan and Emily stood in the now luminous library, surrounded by characters who had been saved from the brink of disappearance. The light of dawn had broken through the windows, bathing the room in a warm, golden glow. The siblings were exhausted, but filled with a sense of accomplishment. They had done what had seemed impossible. They had saved the stories, bringing them to life with their voices and hearts. But as they took a moment to catch their breath, a deep rumbling sound echoed through the library. The light flickered, and the air grew heavy once more. The characters fell silent, their eyes turning toward the center of the library, where a large, ornate door had appeared out of nowhere. Nathan and Emily exchanged a glance. They knew that their journey wasn't over yet. "What's happening?" Nathan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lily, the fairy, fluttered to his side, her wings shimmering with a soft light. "The heart of the library," she said, her voice filled with both awe and trepidation. "It holds the most important books, the ones that contain the very essence of every story in existence. To break the curse completely, you must face the final challenge within." Sir Peter, standing tall beside Lily, nodded gravely. "You have proven your bravery, Nathan, but this will be your greatest test. The final book is unlike any other. It holds immense power, but also great danger." Nathan felt a knot of fear tighten in his chest. He had grown more confident in his reading, but the thought of facing another challenge, especially one so daunting, made him hesitate. What if he failed? What if all their efforts were for nothing? Emily, sensing his fear, took his hand and squeezed it reassuringly. "We've come this far, Nate," she said softly. "We can do this, together." Nathan looked at his sister, her face filled with determination and love. He nodded, drawing strength from her words. Together, they approached the door. As they drew nearer, it swung open with a low creak, revealing a dimly lit room beyond. The room was smaller than the rest of the library, but it radiated a sense of ancient power. In the center stood a large, intricately carved pedestal, and atop it rested a massive tome, its cover worn and cracked with age. The book seemed to pulse with a soft blue light, as if it were alive. Nathan approached the book with a mixture of awe and fear. He could feel the weight of its presence, the power it held. He reached out to touch it, but as his fingers brushed the cover, the light in the room flared, and a figure appeared before them. The figure was tall and cloaked in deep, flowing robes. His face was hidden beneath a hood, but his eyes gleamed with wisdom and authority. In one hand, he held a staff made of twisted wood, and in the other, a key that seemed to glow with an inner light. "I am the librarian," the figure intoned, his voice resonating through the room. "I am the guardian of this library, and the keeper of its most powerful stories. You have done well to come this far, Nathan Parker, but your greatest challenge lies ahead." Nathan swallowed hard, feeling his fear return in full force. The librarian's presence was overwhelming, and the task before him seemed impossible. But he couldn't back down now, not after everything they had accomplished. "What do I need to do?" Nathan asked, his voice trembling. The librarian gestured to the massive tome. "This book contains the story that holds the key to breaking the curse. But it is no ordinary story. It is a story of immense complexity and depth, one that has challenged even the greatest of readers. To unlock its power, you must read it aloud with all your heart and soul." Nathan felt the weight of the challenge settle on his shoulders. He looked at the book, its pages seeming to glow with an otherworldly light, and took a deep breath. "I'll do my best," he said, though the doubt lingered in his mind. The librarian's eyes narrowed, as if reading Nathan's thoughts. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the will to face it. The story will test you, but you are not alone. The characters you have saved, your sister, and even the magic of this library will aid you. Trust in yourself, Nathan. Emily stepped closer, her hand still in his. We're with you, Nate, she whispered. We believe in you. Nathan nodded, feeling a surge of determination. He placed his hands on the cover of the book, feeling its ancient warmth seep into his skin. With one last look at Emily, he opened the tome. The pages were filled with strange, swirling symbols, unlike anything Nathan had ever seen. They seemed to shift and change as he looked at them, making it difficult to focus. But Nathan took a deep breath and began to read. The words were difficult, more so than anything he had encountered before. They twisted and turned in his mind, trying to confuse him, to make him doubt. But Nathan pushed through, his voice steady and strong. The room around him began to change, the walls dissolving into a vast landscape of mountains, forests, and oceans. The story was coming to life, just as the others had, but this time it was even more vivid, more real. As he read, the librarian watched, his expression inscrutable. Nathan could feel the challenge growing harder with each passing word. The symbols seemed to fight against him, their meanings elusive, but Nathan pressed on, drawing strength from Emily's presence and the belief of the characters who had gathered to watch. But just as he neared the end of the story, Nathan's voice faltered. The last few words on the page were unlike anything he had ever encountered, complex and ancient, their meanings layered and difficult to grasp. Fear gripped him, threatening to overwhelm the progress he had made. The librarian's voice cut through the silence. This is the final test, Nathan. The words before you are the key to breaking the curse, but only if you can truly understand them. You must not only read them, but feel their meaning deep within you. Nathan stared at the words, his heart pounding. They seemed to shift and blur, but he knew he couldn't give up. Closing his eyes, he let the sounds of the library fade away, focusing entirely on the story, on the journey he had taken, and on the connection he felt with the characters and the magic around him. And then, slowly, the meaning of the words began to unfold in his mind. They were words of courage, of love, of belief in oneself. They were words that spoke to the very heart of what it meant to be a hero, to overcome fear and doubt. Nathan's eyes snapped open, and with newfound clarity, he spoke the final words aloud. The moment the last word left his lips, the room was filled with a brilliant light, so bright that Nathan had to shield his eyes. The book glowed with an intense blue light, the symbols on the page burning away the darkness that had lingered in the library. The librarian stepped forward, his expression one of approval and respect. You have done it, Nathan Parker. You have unlocked the true power of the library and broken the curse. The stories will live on, thanks to your courage and determination. The light slowly faded, and Nathan found himself back in the heart of the library. The massive tome closed before him. The librarian held out the glowing key, placing it in Nathan's hand. This key will allow you to return to this library whenever you wish. The stories are yours to protect, to cherish, and to share. Nathan felt a wave of relief and pride wash over him. He had faced his greatest challenge and emerged victorious. He turned to Emily, who smiled at him with tears of joy in her eyes. I knew you could do it, she said, pulling him into a tight hug. As the characters cheered and celebrated around them, Nathan knew that this was not the end of his adventure, but the beginning of a new chapter. He had discovered the true power of stories, and with it, the courage to face any challenge that came his way. The first rays of sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the library, casting a warm, golden glow over the room. Nathan stood at the center, his hands still resting on the ancient tome that had tested him in ways he never imagined. The once daunting book now felt lighter, its pages no longer a mystery, but a testament to the power of his determination and the magic that stories held. Around him, the characters he had saved rejoiced, their voices filled with gratitude and joy. The library, once darkened by the looming curse, had transformed into a place of light and wonder. The walls seemed to hum with energy, the books on the shelves glowing softly as if filled with new life. It was as though the entire room had been reborn, no longer a hidden relic of the past, but a vibrant, living world where stories could thrive. Nathan turned to Emily, who beamed at him with pride. "You did it, Nate," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "You really did it." Nathan smiled back, a mix of relief and triumph filling his heart. "We did it," he corrected her. "I couldn't have done it without you." As they stood together, basking in the warmth of their victory, the librarian approached, his robes flowing gracefully behind him. His eyes, now visible beneath the hood, sparkled with wisdom and kindness. "You have shown great courage, Nathan Parker," he said. "You have not only saved the stories within this library, but you have also unlocked a power within yourself, a power that will serve you well in all the stories yet to come." Nathan felt a sense of pride swell within him. He had always struggled with reading, but now, standing in this magical library, he realized that something had changed. The words that had once seemed impossible now felt familiar, as if the stories themselves were guiding him, helping him understand. He could read more fluently, the words flowing together in a way that made sense, and he knew it was because he had finally embraced the magic of stories. The librarian held out a beautifully bound book, its cover embossed with golden lettering that shimmered in the light. "This is for you," he said, placing the book in Nathan's hands. "It is a special book, one that will allow you to visit the worlds of these stories whenever you wish. The characters within it are your friends now, and they will always be there for you, just as you have been there for them." Nathan stared at the book, his heart racing with excitement. The cover was adorned with images of fantastical creatures, brave knights, and enchanted forests, all the worlds he had brought to life with his reading. He opened the book to the first page, where he saw his own name written in elegant script. This was a book that belonged to him, a book that held endless adventures just waiting to be explored. "Thank you," Nathan whispered, his voice filled with awe. "I'll take good care of it." The librarian nodded, his expression one of deep satisfaction. "Remember, Nathan, the true power of a story lies in its ability to connect with those who read it. You have that power now, and it will guide you in all your future journeys." As the librarian stepped back, the characters gathered around Nathan and Emily, their faces full of gratitude. Sir Peter, the brave knight, knelt before them, his sword raised in salute. "You have saved us all," he said, his voice strong and sincere. "You will always be welcome in our world, Nathan." Lily, the clever fairy, fluttered to Nathan's shoulder, her wings sparkling with joy. "Whenever you need us, just open the book and we'll be there," she promised, her voice like a tinkling bell. Nathan felt a deep connection to these characters, knowing that they were not just part of a story, but part of his life now. He knew that he could return to their worlds whenever he wanted, that their adventures were as much his as they were theirs. With the special book clutched to his chest, Nathan and Emily made their way out of the library. As they walked through the door, the light behind them faded, the magical world of the library retreating into the background. But Nathan knew that it was always there, waiting for him whenever he needed it. They stepped into Aunt Eleanor's house, which was now filled with the same warmth and light that had transformed the library. The shadows that had once haunted the old Victorian home were gone, replaced by a sense of peace and magic that lingered in the air. Nathan looked around, feeling a connection to the house that he hadn't before. It was no longer just Aunt Eleanor's house. It was a place of stories, of adventures, and of the magic that he had discovered within himself. As they left the house and stepped into the bright morning light, Nathan felt a sense of anticipation. He knew that this was just the beginning of his journey, that there were countless stories waiting for him in the pages of the book he now held. And with Emily by his side, he knew that they would face whatever challenges came their way, just as they had in the library. Back home, Nathan couldn't wait to open the book again, to dive back into the worlds he had come to love. He settled into his favorite chair, Emily sitting beside him, and with a smile, he opened the book to the first page. The words greeted him like old friends, and as he began to read, the world around him transformed once more. The adventure was far from over. It was just beginning.